Welcome you here to the 8th race of the season for the G-Force Grand National Series at the D-shaped mile and a half of Texas Motor Speedway. Qualifying's already underway as a couple of drivers have already taken to the track and set down some lap times. We'll get to those in just a moment, but I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, we've seen, I wouldn't say surprise winners, but there's been some pleasant, well, I was just going to say surprise. So yeah, let's call it surprises. Why not? In the past couple of weeks of drivers that have gone to victory lane, we were thinking out of the gate Gerald Campbell's going to dominate everything, but there's some other drivers that have popped up there in victory lane.
Yeah, Gerald Campbell, our 1-2-time winner, and the rest of those drivers, we've had Bo Brady 2 weeks ago able to get a surprise win. Is on track is going to be Ernest King, who is starting his lap, but also Shane Terrian, who had his second start last week, got his win at Auto Club. So newcomers have come in, and they're showing that they've got some speed.
And last week we saw Gerald Campbell have a little bit of an issue when he ended up getting turned and a caution did not come out to save him. As a result, a huge gap that he had going into this week's into last week's race, I should say, has now been cut down to 39 points between himself and John Whitendorf.
Yeah, and right now, John Whitendorf's got to be loving this, able to try to cut into what that gap was, and now a fighting here coming to the later stages of this season. As we're past the halfway marker, it's really the time to be putting up your best showings, and I think this is going to be a great time for John Whitendorf. Mile and a half course is where we've been seeing Gerald Campbell get his 2 wins at Charlotte in week 2, and then also at Las Vegas for week 5. It's looking like Gerald Campbell is the favorite here today, but Whitendorf, still another driver that's got a ton of speed and looking for that win.
You can see up on the top of our ticker there, Shane Terrian, last week's winner. He is currently at the top of the board with a 29.359. Joseph Causey, the 8 car that we're looking at right now, he just jumped up to second, 29.477. The other 2 drivers up to this point that have taken time, Jason Houndshell and Ernest King, they currently sit 3rd and 4th. We did have a couple of other drivers that went out, I believe, Sam, that their time was disallowed.
Yeah, we had Benjamin Staple, who went out and coming off of turn number 4, actually dumped it into the infield, and the time was not eligible. So that 21 machine will be starting at the back of the field. Now on track, about to come and finish his time. It's going to be the 19 of Randy Koking.
Randy Koking coming into this race currently in the 18th position in the point stand. Struggling has not been his strong suit, but the last couple of weeks he's actually put together some strong finishes. Last week, I believe he finished inside of the top 20.
Yeah, Randy Koken really just looking for consistency for himself, and a driver that's not looking like a favorite to win at every track that we're at, but certainly a driver that's looking for a top 50 with top 10 finish. Now going to be on course, another newcomer. Each week it seems like we have a new face coming in. That's going to be Cooper Johnson in this 19.
Not mistaken, I believe that is a 2006 Elliott Sadler throwback that he's got out there on the racetrack. Beautiful looking scheme there. Is Cooper Johnson going to be trying his hand? And we've seen, in the last 5 or 6 weeks, drivers that come in, make their first start, and they make quite an impression. So we'll see what Cooper Johnson's able to do here at Texas.
Yeah, and it really is switching up and bringing new blood into the racing scene for these G-Force guys, and seeing how they're going to be reacting throughout the week, as Johnson kind of running a little bit high through that corner, but still looking extremely quick in this 19 machine. And I think right now Johnson might be a driver that's going to fit inside of our top 3 of the drivers so far.
A groove off the bottom there through 3 and 4. It's down close to the grass in the infield of the front straightaway, and he's going to clock in 3rd currently with a 29.490. Nice lap for him. Now we drop to the 34 of Robert Kenny, who had a great run last time out.
Yeah, Robert Kenny, another one of those drivers that came in with Shane Terrian a couple weeks back, and 34 machine just looking for a consistent run. I think another top 10 finish idea is looking for this 34 machine. As here at Texas, I mean, it's at the Legacy course here, Seth, so both 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 very similar to one another, not like the new configuration where 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are slightly off of each other in the way that they are built.
Kenny gonna hit the line here. Let's see where he's gonna slot himself, and he's gonna be 4th. Out of the 7 drivers that have been scored so far, 29.623. That number 34 Dodge. Next driver to head out onto the track is going to be the 10 of Peyton Hamlet. Hamlet struggled last week and is looking to kind of bounce back. Ooh, gets a little slideways there, even on the apron coming out onto the racetrack. And I would assume, especially at any of the speedways, you don't want to get those rear tires all overcooked because you want to have as much grip as possible going into the corner. If your tires are heated up, you're not going to find that kind of grip.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, burning up and getting a little bit loose and putting some heat in your tires here for qualifying isn't the worst tactic. It's actually kind of known to be a really good tactic if you can get away with warming up those tires. And Hamlet, based off the last couple of weeks, looking to have a good finish, has been having a good car in the first and middle portions of the race, but when it comes to the end of the race, gets caught up into trouble and really trying to have a really decent finish. Coming out of 4, looking good for this 10 machine.
Right down there to the bottom when Peyton Hamlet. Let's see if that gains him any time through 3 and 4. As he will cross the line and currently slots in 4th, just ahead of Robert Kenny. It's going to be a 29.618 for the driver, the number 10. Next up, we got James Roth. 6 starts of the 7 races so far this season. 13th in the point standings. Been a very consistent year so far for the driver of the Coca-Cola Chevrolet.
Yeah, and Roth, another one of those drivers that has been kind of having a flip-floppy portions of the ends of these races. Some races you find him in the top 10, having some great runs and finishing in the top 10. Other times he's showing that he's got pace to be a top 5 car and then gets caught up into trouble. So James Roth, like I said, 13th in points, looking to continue that off and trying to get 10th in points, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks.
One thing I'm noticing here with these drivers, and of course this is going to be a night race, I'm not seeing nearly as much slipping and sliding as we're used to seeing at a lot of the speedways during qualifying.
Yeah, and due to that is the fact that these drivers are driving on a much cooler surface. Usually when drivers are taking qualifying here at these mile and a halves, track temps anywhere from around 80 to almost 100 degrees. It is actually less than 80. It's 72 degrees track temp. Cool. That means there's plenty of grip for these drivers, as now it's going to be the 85 machine out on track.
James Goshen looking for his 4th start of the season. 31st in points and looking for his first top 10 of the year as well. See what he's going to be able to do in this number 85 machine. Piloting the Stars and Stripes as he'll bring it off of turn number 4. James Goshen's going to clock in according to our scoring. 6th place, 29.652.
Yeah, not a bad running for that 85 machine. And now we have ourselves, I believe it's going to be the 81 of Shane Lake out on track. As I say, that actually is going to be Seth Harlson, 07.
We're used to Seth Harlson usually going out 3rd, 4th, 5th car in qualifying, since he normally isn't able to go out there and turn a number of laps. He's going out there, I believe, 13th of the drivers in the list. So apparently got a little bit of an opportunity to take to this Texas Motor Speedway, get used to how it drives, and he comes into this race currently 15th in the point standings as well. Kind of another driver, I would think, that fits into the Peyton Hamlet situation, where it's a driver that runs really well at the beginning and the middle and then just finds hardship at the end of the races.
Yeah, and it's a real struggle now that we've been seeing for Harlson, because he's shown some speed. I mean, sure, qualifying, when he starts his qualifying time, it's not the fastest, but he certainly qualifies good enough to be up in our top 15, top 10. As here comes Seth Harlson coming across the line. Ooh, that was not a very good time for himself. It's going to be in 11th. I don't believe that time was validated.
I think you're right. I don't think that time was accepted, and so Seth Harlson will be starting towards the rear of the field, as now AJ DeMarzo in the number 5 machine out there on the track. DeMarzo getting ready to make his 8th start of the season, 21st in points coming into this race, so knocking on the door of a top 20 in the standings when he leads Texas.
Yeah, I think right now AJ's thinking about just finishing the race, having a car that is in one piece at the end. It has not been a great season for this 5 machine, and just trying to have a better run for himself here at Texas.
Average finishing spot of 25th so far this season, as he will cross the line in that red, yellow, and blue chrome machine. 4th on the board. Nice lap, 29.497 for AJ DeMarzo.
That's a really respectable time that should be putting him maybe close to a top 10, maybe even a top 15 start for that 5 machine. Now it's going to be Peyton Hill in that 84 machine trying to get a good run. And right now he is right on that white line, trying to stay as low as possible through 1 and 2.
Peyton Hill was kind of the pleasant surprise last week at Auto Club. Ran up in the top 10 all night long. Actually, in the first half of the race, he actually was up inside of the top 5. And so looking to build off of that momentum, we'll see where he's going to be able to qualify in. As hitting the line, he's going to be scored 5th on the board right now with a 29.512. Peyton coming into this race 24th in standings, so he'll be taking the green flag for the 5th time here tonight.
Driver that should be going out on track should be the 33, I believe.
It is
John Whitendorf.
Second in points. Whitendorf finished second last week at Auto Club. That was another big reason why he was able to cut into Gerald Campbell's points lead, but still looking for his first trip to victory lane.
Yeah, practice really didn't go the way that John was hoping for. Usually a driver that qualifies later on in this race. A very quick time looking like top of the board with a 29.274 for John Whitendorf. Almost a full 10th faster than our previous top of the board, Shane Tarian.
8 100ths faster there for John Whitendorf. Maybe a statement run right there. Mentioned he's trying to get his first win of the season, and of course the big picture as well. It's a series that it's whoever accumulates the most points at the end of the year wins the championship, so trying to cut into that points lead even more between himself and Gerald Campbell. As now we look at Kyle Johnson. Bass Pro Shop's good wrench look on that 88 machine this week. Oh boy, we've seen this before where he's had connection problems during qualifying, and it looks like he is going to get a lap time in. I thought for a moment it wasn't going to allow him, but 29.421, third on the board for the 88.
Yeah, and that's a similar act that we've seen previously with other drivers throughout the season of if you're blinking through your qualifying lap, sometimes iRacing won't pick it up and it will then register you as an invalidated lap. So luckily, Kyle Johnson was able to survive and keep that car out there, as now it's going to be the 0-2 that's out on track trying to finish out his time, Jake Hounshell.
Jake Hounshell comes in this race 4th in the point standings, 123 points back, and while that may seem like an insurmountable odd, we have to remember the fact that we run off the old point system. So if you get a decent enough run and drivers ahead of you have bad days, you could maybe cut into that and still be in the championship picture, as Hounshell clocks in 4th with a 29.429.
Yeah, a pretty solid time for Jake Hounshell that's looking for just a decent day for himself. I think a top 5, top 10 finish is where he is looking for. Blaine Atkin now going to be on the board, starting his lap in the 0-5.
Blaine Atkin, our Richmond winner, and into this race 8th in the point standings.
I think really Blaine might be in the mindset of I want to try to beat Gerald this time around. He's had some very fast cars at the start of runs. He's been struggling with keeping his pace on the longer runs during the race, but during qualifying, coming across the line, 3rd on the board with a 29.377 for Blaine Atkin.
Just a tick off of Shane Tirian's lap, about 2 100ths slower, a full 10th slower than John Whitendorf's current pole lap. Is next out is going to be the 77 of Rocky Boyd.
Yeah, Rocky Boyd, looking at some of his stats, and it's kind of staggering to look at the stats that this 77 machine has had. He's been quick, he's been fast, but the struggle has been incident points that this 77 has had. He's been having a lot of contact, either with the wall or other drivers. I think that's something that he's got to be focusing on here for the final stages of the season. Rocky Boyd coming across the line, and like he's going to be around top 5. Yep, 4th on the board, 29.418.
A good average starting position so far this season in his 6 starts. Average start of about 11th place. Is very good in qualifying, but to your point, to kind of avoid contact in these races to get decent enough finishes, as he is currently 19th in points. We're now looking at Anthony Guarneri in the number 16. Now, Guarneri's been on a bit of a skid as of late. I think it was about 3 weeks ago when we were at Bristol. Guarneri was up in the top 10 in the standings. He now finds himself down 14th in points, going the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's been a lot of DNFs for this machine week after week. It seems like we started the season off where Guarneri was a driver that was looking like he was a top 5 contender almost every week, and now going to be qualifying 11th on the board with a 29.547. Guarneri is going to need a solid day. I think really his goal, just like some of these other drivers in the back half of the field, just survive and don't get a DNF.
Guarneri in that Steve Park throwback. Tyler Riggs loose there through 1 and 2. Drifting, and he's going to get the inside wall on the back straightaway.
And Tyler Riggs going to be one of those drivers that's going to have an invalid lap time here for qualifying. Most likely going to be staying in the back with Benjamin Staples. And that is not the way that Tyler Riggs wanted his qualifying day to go. Just getting loose. And that's a sensation that these drivers are going to have to deal with even during the race, even with how much grip there is on the track at the moment.
Just saw that thing was coming out from underneath him as soon as he got into turn 1, as we're now looking at former winner Bo Brady in the number 20 machine. Brady, of course, winning a couple weeks ago at Phoenix, and must be a Bobby Allison fan, or at least likes Bobby Allison's paint schemes, because we saw him in the gold and white Miller throwback car for the last couple of weeks, and now he's running the Bobby Allison red and white paint scheme with the star on the side.
Yeah, and really I think Bo Brady at the moment just trying any scheme out. He's already proven that he has really a strategy that could win him races. He almost won back at Las Vegas. He almost won at Bristol, won at Phoenix finally. Now going to be second on the board. Bo Brady just seems to be impressing week after week with a 29.338.
It's amazing how a series, the change of series can change the luck of a driver. Bo Brady really struggled back in the G-Force Vintage Clothing 87 series, but now he has been on fire here in the Grand National Series. As now we look at Tom Bourne in the 54 machine. Tom had a great run last week, actually had to combat some early contact to be able to get, I think it was a top 10 run for this G Fuel machine.
Yeah, and really this 54 machine's been running all season long, been trying to go for championship run, but has been caught up in a lot of wrecks. And I think Tom might be one of those drivers that was kind of hoping that there would have been a faster pair to have during this series, but another fast lap time, 4th on the board for Tom Bourne with a 29.382.
Tom Bourne currently sitting up inside of the top 5. Next up is going to be another former winner from this season, our Bristol winner, Jeff Green. Jeff comes into this race 6th in the point stands, 161 points out.
Yeah, Jeff Green, I think he's another driver that we've been seeing at these mile-and-a-half tracks being a top contender, a top 3 machine to a top 5 car, and expecting to see this 2 machine really put on a great show here today.
Not sure how good this lap time's going to be. He was wicked loose off of 2, almost went up and brushed the wall there on the back straightaway. Was able to gather it up, but we'll see how that affects his lap time as he'll hit the stripe. And he'll put that number 2 machine currently 4th on the board with a 29.371.
Now I believe the 57 is now going to be the next car on track.
Caden Thor had a really decent run going last week at Auto Club, but got involved in a wreck and was one of our first DNF drivers. As a result, Caden finds himself 25th in the points coming to this one, and really, too, the finishing results have not shown the ability that this car has, especially in qualifying. An average qualifying position of 9th, average finishing position of 18th, only 1 top 10 so far this year.
Yeah, I think Thor right now just wanting to survive and finish, hopefully in the top 10, but I think just surviving and finishing the race, top of the board.
Look at that, 29.256, the M&M's machine.
Yeah, and Thor's been known to be putting his car on top of the board. He's been quick, expecting that to continue on. Now the driver that's been dominant during qualifying time, Gerald Campbell, out on track.
Now, one thing that Caden Thor does not have this season is a pole. Gerald Campbell, on the other hand, he, I believe, has 3 pole positions this season and looking for a 4th. We'll see what he's going to be able to do here off of 3 and 4. Right down there on the inside line, holding loose, and it's going to come around on him.
This is exactly what I saw with Staples earlier, and trying to save it completely cannot. Gerald Campbell coming across the line. It's going to be an invalid lap, so that means the 25 machine going to be back with his teammate of the 26, Tyler Riggs, as well as Staples, back in the back half of the field starting this race.
You saw off of turn 4, he knew the car was going to come around. He never stopped driving. I think he was trying to see if he could keep it from hitting the wall and get it back to the start-finish line to at least have a time be allowed, even if it wasn't going to be a pole position time, as now Christopher Morse Jr., the Tasmanian Devil, on the hood of his red Goodwrench Chevrolet. Morse Jr. coming into this race 11th in the standings, and he's going to get a little loose off of 4.
The loose sensation is picking up, and you would think, hey, maybe that's just due to the fact that the track's been evolving. No, the track temp has stayed the same. It's the fact that these drivers that are coming out now, they were on top of the board for practice, so they're trying and they're feeling the pressure of, hey, I got to make sure that I am on top and I come out with the pole position.
On the board for Christopher Morse Jr., 29.404, as now we look at third in points, Hank Steinmiller, 85 points out of the points lead. He's still within striking distance in this 63 machine.
Yeah, Hank's looking really good, and he hasn't had the best qualifying times. He's actually been starting in the back half of the field for most of these races, but it's been slowly, methodically throughout the race, finding himself up front. So really, Hank Steinmiller, I think a great qualifying time, like he's going to have second on the board with a 29.257. That is exactly what he needs, but he's 2 thousandths off of getting the pole position.
So close, mediocre margin between himself and Caden Thur, as now it's going to be a red, white, and green machine of Shane Lake. You'll notice the orange ribbon on the hood of his car. We were notified this week that his wife is currently battling leukemia, and so the orange Lake Strong ribbon on there to support his wife. So obviously a certain mixture of emotions, I'm sure, going on inside the cockpit of that 81 car here tonight, hoping to get that tribute scheme a decent finish.
Yeah, and hoping to get a great qualifying run. Like you said, Shane notified us and telling us about Heather, and really this was a major surprise that he wanted to give to his wife, and it must be on the hood of the car. Lake Strong crossed the line. It's looking like a pretty strong time to be putting down. Should be 20th on the board. And I think Shane, his goal for the night, finish the race and have a good finish.
Shane Lake has struggled the last couple of weeks. Has not scored a top 10 yet. Actually has an average finishing position of about 20th. Is 22nd in points. So to your point, yeah, definitely, at least I think the main goal, keep that car, that tribute scheme in one piece. That is going to do it for qualifying here. So Caden Thur be a brand new pole sitter here in the G-Force Grand National Series. He'll be leading them to green over Hank Steinmiller.
Yeah, a great time for Caden Thur to be winning the pole position award presented by Dirty Racing Podcast. Their podcast is going to be starting up in 2021. It's going to be all about race talk, race recaps. Can't wait to hear what they've got to say, as it's going to be Caden Thur with your Dirty Racing Podcast pole position award.
All right, so let's talk about mile and a half here, Sam, because this is going to be the third time these drivers will take to a track of that length. Charlotte was the first one. They ran 100 laps there. Then we went to Las Vegas. They ran 100 laps there, but it's 133 laps here tonight, so it's the longest race so far at a mile and a half track these drivers are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and they're only going to have 2 sets of tires to work with here at Texas, and Texas has been known to absolutely be brutal on tires. So 2 tires in pits, so that means that they might actually utilize all 3 sets that they're going to have. The set that they start the race on and the 2 in pit road. This is going to be close racing action for most of these drivers, and I'm looking at the pattern that we've had. It's been Gerald Campbell winning at our last 2 mile and a half courses, but Bo Brady was extremely close. He was a half a lap away from beating out Gerald Campbell at Las Vegas, but just lost out due to the fact that Gerald Campbell had the fresher tires. That might be another factor that we see here at Texas.
There's another thing that's going to be interesting as well is what is the mindset right now of Gerald Campbell? You mentioned the fact he's won the last 2 mile and a half tracks that we've been at so far this season, but this is crunch time now. After tonight, there's only 4 more races left in the season. Campbell's coming off some rather, poor momentum from last week at Auto Club after he got spun out, and the driver that was trying to cut into his points lead finished second, John Whitendorf, so he cut down the points lead by more than half. Now Whitendorf's going to start up there in third. Hank Steinmiller, third in the points, is starting in second. And Gerald Campbell, because of that spin off of turn 4, he's starting towards the rear of the field.
Yeah, Gerald Campbell going to be starting back in 27th position. And this is going to be a different Gerald Campbell type of strategy compared to what we've seen previously. Campbell's been starting up front almost every single week, and at these mile and a halves, he has the tendency to back off, save his tires, then make that push and pass everyone. But due to the fact that he's going to be starting so far back of the field, he's got to be aggressive early, get up front as quick as possible, and then try to save his tires. And maybe by that point, he might be equaled out with the front runners that are trying to pull away. But he's got a lot of drivers that are looking strong and hungry for a win. I mean, pole sitter Thor, he's got to be quick. Hank Steinmiller's looking for a win. So is Whitendorf. And then you know that Bo Brady's got his different strategy with Kyle Johnson, the fact that they're going to pit early for tires, try to have that advantage over the rest of the field. And you also know Jeff Green, he's been hungry to get a win at a mile and a half. Shane Tarian just won at Auto Club last week. That new face is looking extremely quick compared to the rest of the field as well.
Now, I wasn't in the booth the night that we had the call for the Charlotte race, and that was Charlotte Legacy. Here tonight, we're at Texas Legacy, which means it's going to be the older track surface, the non-repaved Texas Motor Speedway. Are we going to see some similarities between the tire wear and how these drivers are going to have to approach this race long-term as it was at Charlotte?
Yeah, I think a lot of these drivers aiming probably around 40 to 45 laps for their tires. Maybe some drivers might even push it to about 60 to 65 laps on these tires. And I think if you see someone trying to push it to the halfway marker before they pit, they are trying to save a set of tires just in case we have a caution with about 20 laps to go. Well, I think a lot of these drivers, I think Bo Brady and others might be going with the mentality, hit on lap 40 or even 50 and try to get the advantage of having the freshest tires early.
Wonder too, with it being the Legacy Texas Motor Speedway, do we see a multi-groove racetrack? Because we saw here in qualifying, some drivers right down there on the white line, a couple of drivers either a groove or a groove and a half off the bottom. But does anyone venture up maybe to a second or maybe possibly even a third groove here tonight? Or is it just not enough grip, especially early on, to be able to do something like that?
I think we're going to see some drivers trying to work on that second and third groove, trying to just put grip up there for later on in this race. Like I said, this is the longest mile and a half course that we're going to have I think, all this season with 133 laps here. And excited to see which drivers are going to be thinking about going to that high line. I think most of everyone's thinking either run on the white line or about a half a groove up just to get that little bit of a buffer, but still running quick.
Folks, we're currently in the process of waiting for qualifying to come to a close and these drivers to grid up for what will be 133 laps in tonight's event, the Smart Remodeling 200 at Texas Motor Speedway. So we're going to take a quick race break. We'll be back here when they roll off the grid and get ready to go green flag racing here in the G-Force Grand National Series. All right, the field's getting lined up here on the front straightaway, and we are moments away from going green in the Smart Way remodeling 200 at Texas Motor Speedway. It's going to be Caden Thur and Hank Steinmiller. They're going to line up on the front row. They're going to be followed by John Whitendorf in third. Fourth place, I believe that is Bo Brady in the 20s. So pretty interesting front two rows. But again, if you're just joining us and you missed qualifying, some big names starting towards the back of the pack here, Sam.
Yeah, we're going to be having ourselves with Tyler Riggs, Gerald Campbell going to be starting the back of the pack, which both those drivers have been known to be drivers that qualify in our top 10. Gerald Campbell, who's been on average of almost qualifying in our top 3 each and every week, came off of 4 loose and Tyler Riggs out of 2. So showing us that both corners very tricky and there's loose sensations at both those spots.
Now, obviously, these drivers are going to be taking the green flag with similar conditions to what they had when they went out in qualifying. So do we see more drivers tiptoeing out of turn 4 in the early stages of this race just based off what we saw in qualifying?
I think so. It's going to be a little bit cooler for this race at the start. 70 degrees is going to be track temp, outside temp looking like 65 degrees, partly cloudy for the drivers. So there's the chance the track could possibly cool off even more than it is right now, which it's kind of a shocker to see. Like I stated earlier during qualifying, we've been seeing a lot more of hotter temps for the drivers to work off earlier in the season, and now it's starting to cool off. 70 degrees is the start. Let's see how it evolves throughout the race.
So far this season, 7 races and 6 different drivers have gone to victory lane. We've got, number of drivers up here like Thur and Whitendorf, Houndshell, Tom Bourne, as well as Hank Steinmiller starting up here inside of our first 3 rows. Do we see another different driver go to victory lane, or do you think maybe we're in for a repeat winner?
I think right now Steinmiller as well as Whitendorf, I think those are the 2 drivers that are going to be really trying to pressure and have a chance to win, but you really can't throw out Bo Brady as well as Gerald Campbell here. Those 2 are looking extremely quick, and also I think my dark horse pick got to be Shane Terrian in that 38 machine.
We'll see what happens here. 133 laps await these drivers as the green flag's in the air, and we're underway in the Smart Way remodeling 200.
Thor's going to be, again, a great launch on the inside, and here comes Weindorf on the inside, pressuring strong, as it's going to be side-by-side action for 2nd and 3rd place.
Oh boy, and the race leader's having some problems here, blinking in and out. That could make things dicey at the front, as Steinmiller's going to pull ahead for 2nd, Brady in 3rd using the top line off of turn 2.
Yeah, I'm going to be trying to make some moves here. Drivers in the back look like they might have had some issues. It looks like Jackson Iron, who came in late, was not able to put a qualifying lap down, was not able to get through the gears as well, and now going to be starting back. Also looking like Rocky Boyd got into the wall through the tri-oval.
A couple of drivers with some issues. Boyd has a problem. I think I saw the 84 of Peyton Hill make an aggressive move to the inside on the back straightaway. Not sure if that was in reaction to something ahead of him, as we've had a lead change. Hank Steinmiller is going to go to the point.
Steinmiller to the point, and also another car that had major issues. It's going to be Jason Houndshell that spun out but not bringing out a yellow.
No caution for that as he gets it refired, drives away, and we talk about the fact these drivers only have 2 sets of tires, especially with the fact that if you spin out and a caution doesn't come out to save you, that's going to wear those tires down even more.
Yeah, because you're going to have to spin it and get it rear-fired up and trying to get yourself straight. That could be wearing the tires even more. But right now, it looks like it's going to be Steinmiller trying to just pull away from the rest of the field, not really going with the strategy of saving his tires, just going and trying to build as much of a lead as possible.
And up here, nose to tail, you've got 3 former winners. Shane Terrian, our winner from Auto Club last week, Blaine Atkin, our Richmond winner, and Jeff Green, our Bristol winner. They're trying to catch up here to the 33 of John Whitendorf, who may have clipped the apron there off of 2. Almost shot him up the track there towards the wall.
Yeah, certainly made the car want to bobble up, and I think a lot of these drivers trying to figure that out. Is also looked like Atkin got into the apron there, drifting up and might be losing a position here to Jeff Green.
Green's got the momentum. Tom Bourne got a big run there. Thought he might think about looking 3 wide. Instead, he'll follow in the tire tracks of the Chevy Goods machine of Jeff Green. Behind them, you've got Christopher Morris Jr., Kyle Johnson, Joseph Causey. They're all wadded up for spots just inside of the top 10.
Yeah, and these drivers behind Tom Bourne, I mean, they're drivers that we've seen get loose during qualifying. See if they're able to continue to hang on, as it looks like it's going to be Kazi. He can pass on the 3 machine, moving himself up to 10th place.
And you saw right there when Blaine Acton was trying to hold off Tom Bourne, still dealing with that loose sensation. You could see with the front of the race car just how hard he was turning that wheel to the left and right, trying to make sure that the nose of the car stayed straight. As now Shane Tyrion on the move. He got around John Whitendorf for 4th, now all over the back bumper of Bo Brady and Caden Thor for 3rd and 2nd.
Yeah, the issue that we've been seeing all season long for Thor, once the race starts, he loses a lot of that speed and starts to drop back for that 57 machine, and I think we're seeing it right now. Bo Brady now going to be moved up, and here comes Shane Terrian, who I was talking about, possibly my dark horse to win this race and become our second 2-time winner this season.
Going to become second 2-time winner, but first driver to go back-to-back. He nearly pulled off the victory 2 weeks ago at Phoenix as well, finishing runner-up to eventual winner Bo Brady, and now he is cleared into second place. Only about 0.4 of a second between himself and Hank Steinmiller, and that last time by, Shane Tyrion was about 0.2 quicker.
Also want to give an update for some drivers that started in the back of the field trying to march their way forward. Gerald Campbell, he's only moved up from 27th up to 22nd. So that 25 machine not really moving up too quick. Right now, only 8.5 seconds behind our leader.
The rig's right behind him as well. But back to the point you made during qualifying after Campbell had his spin, you know, with the tires wearing as much as they do, you can't charge through the front really aggressively, or else you're going to have no tires when you get up there to the front.
Yeah, and I think right now it's kind of stick with your game plan. Wait it out, wait until you can finally make a move forward, and then maybe pursue for a chance to cut your way through the field. But you also got to make sure you're close enough to even make passes, as Gerald Campbell's about almost a second and a half away from the driver in front of him, which would be Rocky Boyd for 21st position.
Joseph Causey got loose off of 2. That opened the door for Christopher Morse Jr. to move on by for 10th. Jake Hounshell going to move to the 11th spot. That 8 car going backwards, and no doubt about it, at least early on, 2 things are springing to the forefront of my mind with what we're seeing. Number 1, if you've got a car that can hook the bottom, you're going to be making passes. Number 2, if you bobble even a little bit, that loses you a lot of momentum. That's going to translate to at least 1, maybe 2, and maybe even more positions lost.
Yeah, and we're continuing to see, I mean, especially if you get in the wall, Rocky Boyd, the biggest, evidence of if you get in the wall, you're most likely going to drop back. He qualified in 10th place, back to 21st position, and looks like he's finally settled in, but extremely off the pace of what he was running previously.
Shane Tyrion to the inside. He's going to take the race lead into turn 3 as he drives it right down to that white line. Steinmiller gives him about a groove and a half down there, and Tyrion is going to go to the point. So Shane Tyrion, it only took him about 12 laps to get up there to the front of the field. Now we'll start to see if he's going to settle in or if he's going to try and open up a gap between himself and this 63.
He's already trying his best to pull away, but I think it's like once you get up to the lead, you kind of have to think about, hey, I got to start saving my tires now. As more issues, I was looking back for the back half of the field. Rocky Boyd, once again, having more issues, getting loose out of 4, almost dumping at it, and now he is falling back to 23rd position. 77, he looked like he was going to have a good day today. It has gone up in smoke. He's needing a caution, get some damage repair, and maybe just settle in finally for the 77 machine.
The one bad thing about a track like Texas with how banked it is into the corners is if you overcook that right front early, it's not easy to be able to run a pace that's going to have it cool down, and Rocky Boyd, almost loses it completely off of turn 2. Able to gather it back up, but another moment for the 77.
It's just continuing to get loose sensation, and there he goes again.
Go around again, maybe here in 3.
That's a factor of the fact that his tires are so worn now, and also so heated up, and he continues to stay on track. As that 77 machine, if we're going to see a caution, it might be from him based on the way that he is not able to hold on to that machine.
Something happens up at the front, we'll certainly take a look at that, but I think we need to keep the camera for the moment on that 77 machine, make sure he keeps it together. Oh, he's going to almost loop it around there out of 2, and I think the 21 of Benjamin Staples behind him, yeah, he's up into the wall off of 2.
Yeah, Staples having issues, and we saw him having major looseness sensations for himself back during qualifying. A driver that is on the move and slowly chipping and cutting his way through traffic. That's Tom Bourne up to 4th place now, side by side here with Bo Brady.
Take that third place now as he's going to get around the 20 machine. Ooh, drifted up there, though. That opens the door for Jeff Green to take a look. At 54 was wicked loose through the final corner. Green looking to move into the podium spot.
Yeah, Bourne was back, started in 8th place. And like I said, was up to 3rd, but then lost it after going a little bit too high. Has to settle back in. But also up front, Shane Terrian, he has slowly been pulling away as it's almost up to a half a second gap between himself and Hank Steinmiller.
The driver that's been steadily moving his way up, started back, I think it was in 19th and now to 13th, making his debut, that 19 of Cooper Johnson. Right now, nobody really ahead of him, nobody behind him, able to kind of tuck into a safe spot in that 13th position, but pretty decent outing at least here for the start of his debut in the G-Force Grand National Series.
Yeah, right now, kind of in the middle of nowhere, not many drivers around him, and, keep your car together. I think that's going to be the best story. It's still a very long race. We're early on. And right now, Cooper Johnson looking very solid, running in 13th place.
Tom Bourne now makes the move on Jeff Green for 3rd. Blaine Atkin goes by Bo Brady, move him up to 5th. Brady's actually going to drop back to 7th as John Whitendorf got around, and woo, Blaine Atkin taking a look there on Jeff Green. That's another thing that we have to keep an eye on is these drivers, especially through the front straightaway, cutting it right down close to the grass, because if you clip the grass, more than likely that's either going to cause suspension problems or spin your car around because there's actually an elevation change there.
Yeah, most likely you really are going to have a handful with the fact that once you hit grass, your car kind of feels like it's racing on glass or on ice. You really have zero control, and you're kind of just crossing your fingers that your car will survive once you get back to pavement. So Rocky Boyd has finally pulled his car into the pits after all of the shenanigans that have been going on for that 77.
A good battle here inside the top 15. Peyton Hamlet in the 10, trying to hold off AJ DeMarzo, who now crosses him over down the back straightaway. Anthony Guarneri and Peyton Hill in this group as well, so that's 14th on back to 16th. Still up inside of the top 5. A lot of side-by-side battling. I think Jeff Green, did he get the wall there off of 4? Because he lost a ton of momentum.
Yeah, it looks like he did tap the wall coming out of 4, but also was completely loose through 3 and 4. That got him that close to the wall. He actually was able to avoid scraping it, but that loose sensation did hit the 2 machine through 3 and 4.
I can't understand here, Sam, is, we're seeing these drivers out of shape this badly on 20-lap old tires, and you're talking about possibly these drivers stretching it to about 65 laps to be able to stretch it on fuel and maybe have a set of tires towards the end. I can't imagine what the car is going to feel like on 65-lap old tires.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta kind of have to look and see what the drivers up front. I mean, Steinmiller and Terrian, they're both been up front running well and kind of looking the most stable of all the machines so far. And it makes sense. If you're able to stay stable, stay clean, and not really moving your steering wheel too much, you're able to stay up front and continue to pull away from the rest of the field.
And now Steinmiller is starting to close back up to the bumper of Shane Terrian. It was about half a second between the two of them a couple laps ago. It's now closed up to less than a car length through 1 and 2.
Yeah, and right now, expecting to see that kind of gap being a rubber band. Pulls out, comes back in, pulls out again. And that's mainly because both drivers are going to be trying to think about how to save their tires. Shane Terrian going to be just moving up, giving that position, looks like, to Steinmiller. And they don't want to stay side-by-side for too long. That's going to be losing time as Shane Terrian fights back on the outside.
We saw this in the closing stages of last week's Auto Club race between Shane Terrian and John Whitendorf. Kind of a cat and mouse game of how much tire do you have as opposed to how much tire I've got. Right here, I think Shane Terrian saying, all right, you want to go up front, you want to use up your tires, go right ahead. And someone got out of shape back there. Was that Whitendorf in the 33? I think no, Blaine Atkin in the 05 off of 2.
And he's going to continue to try to just hold on. He's staying low, able to hold on for now. But man, was that a little bit of a nerve-wracking position to see that 05. And also looking at other drivers that are dropping down through the board. Our pole sitter, Caden Thor, and also Bo Brady, they're now almost both outside of our top 10.
Car way up on the top side there. I think that's, that's the 21. Whoa! It's a debris flying off the right front of Benjamin Staples there.
Yeah, he looks like he might have brushed up into the wall, might have gone into another driver, but able to continue driving along. But you got to be careful with getting so close to the wall that if you make contact, most likely you're not going to survive it.
He's fallen a lap down, as has Jason Hounshell. who had the early spin that didn't bring out a yellow flag. The only other lap machine is the 77 Rocky Boyd, who's actually back down pit road again right now, and he currently has scored 5 laps down.
And also, it's so frustrating for Rocky Boyd, just the fact that we know he's got so much speed and potential. Just another day where it just did not work out for that driver. Looking at the drivers up front, though, Tom Bourne has cut into that lead by almost a full second. He was trying to catch up to our front two. With seeing Steinmiller and Terrian side by side for a bit there, it's now allowed this 54 machine to try to catch up and run down both these drivers.
Trying to make his way around the 00 of Jason Houndshell, and he will complete the pass there. Currently running 1.1 seconds officially behind race leader Hank Steinmiller. Update on drivers that did not get to take time in qualifying. The highest running of those right now would be the 26 of Tyler Riggs. Now, he started all the way back, I believe was in the 28th position, so he's picked up 10 spots here in the first 25 laps, and he's got a group of cars up ahead of him. That's more positions he's looking for.
Well, yeah, and these drivers in front of him have been getting extremely close onto the wall coming out of these corners, and kind of have to be careful here with Tyler Riggs trying to get through this traffic, because we've seen that he's faster than them. The issue is they're kind of being a wall side-by-side action between these drivers. A little bit of smoke. That's going to be Bo Brady. Also, that's going to be Jake Houndshell.
Yeah, the two of them made contact. I think it was on the front straightaway. They were running at the time just inside of the top 10, but no yellow flag coming out for whatever their issue was over on the D-shaped front straightaway area.
Yeah, they both made contact coming out of corner number 4, and they both drifted through the infield, and due to the fact that's off the racing surface, no yellow for those drivers.
I mean, I guess the saving grace for them was the fact that, one, it wasn't any contact into a wall, and number 2, sliding in the grass isn't really going to wear your tires out nearly as much as sliding on the pavement. So that's the good news, I guess. The bad news for both of them is that now Brady finds himself back in 18th. Houndshell finds himself back in 20th. They were 9th and 10th about 2 laps ago.
Yeah, they were looking extremely solid to be trying to make that push into possibly the top 5 when they were racing around Blaine Atkin. Atkin has now dropped back to 10th place as Cooper Johnson has made that pass, and Blaine Atkin, he's dropping back quick because now Causey's under the 05.
Yeah, and that's getting close right there, and there is contact between Causey and Atkin. Atkin gets loose off of turn 2 as a result. That was a little closer for comfort than I would have liked to have seen it there, but fortunately both drivers able to keep it straight and continue on. Causey moving into the 10th position, and it looks like the 77 of Rocky Boyd has called it a night. So tough break there for Boyd. As you mentioned, we know he's got the speed, but he just didn't have the luck here tonight. That car was all over the place, and he'll finish in 30th as the battle for the lead is closing back up.
Yeah, right now Shane Terrian going to be still keeping it within 2/10, and they are really on top of each other. They're not letting one another go, but yet they're still pulling away from the rest of the field, even with this hard racing that's going on.
And Shane was really loose there out of turn 4. That back end looked like it wanted to come around. Now you can see the ground that he lost as a result. These two continuing to battle for the top spot, about 1.4 seconds ahead of Tom Bourne. However, if you look at the lap times right now, they're all running somewhat similar lap times. There's only about maybe 1.5 tenths separating those three in terms of the laps they're turning.
Yeah, you look at most of the field and where they're running. Our top 13 running about 2 tenths off of one another, and it's impressive to see how quick we've been seeing some of these drivers running recently. Looks like Cooper Johnson, though, did find himself in a little bit of trouble, losing time to Causey, now falling back to 10th place. But our front 3 extremely quick, and Whitendorf's starting to find his pace, and he's slowing.
Blaine Atkin, what a save off of 2.
And Atkin's just been dealing with this looseness. We've seen the 05 get in trouble, and I think it's just going to get worse from here on out. He's going to be one of those drivers most likely pitting on lap 40 to 45 and going to have to turn this into a 2 pit stop race.
That's the thing, too. I mean, we've had incidents for sure here. We had the Bo Brady and Jake Houndshell rather incident in the front on the front straightaway. The Jason Houndshell spin early on in this race, but no caution has come out. So I don't know. If I were a driver out there, I'd kind of be puzzled in the back of my mind of, am I strategizing for a caution or am I strategizing for a green flag race from start to finish?
I think you got to think green flag, start to finish, and just wait. If a caution does come out, that's when you pull the audible, try to switch up the game plan. But for now, you just keep running what you've been doing. And for some of these drivers, it's been going really well for themselves. I mean, looking at the fact that Caden Thor, he dropped outside of the top 10 for a quick second. He's now back up to 7th place. A driver that's been falling it back. We saw Blaine Atkin having his issues. Bo Brady has dropped all the way back to 20th place for this 20 machine. He has not rebounded like we saw Thor did, and this is becoming a huge issue for the driver that we thought maybe had a chance after his performance back at Las Vegas.
Obviously, there's still a long ways to go in this one, a little under 100 laps, but if you're keeping track of the current point standings, right now you're looking at third in points. Hank Steinmiller came in less than 100 points back, 85 points back from Gerald Campbell. Second in points, John Whitendorf, minus 39. He is currently in fourth. And then you got to drop all the way back to 16th, Gerald Campbell. He was all the way back 29th on the grid. He's worked his way up 13 spots. It's been a very slow, methodical moving towards the front for Gerald Campbell, but at this point in time, I mean, if Campbell finishes back here, that's more points those two drivers are going to gain. So it'll be interesting to see what the 25's game plan is, especially when we get into the second half of this race.
Yeah, and looking at what Gerald Campbell's times have been and what he's been putting down, he's running just as fast as Robert Kenny and Tyler Riggs in front of him, but running also about 0.3 faster than drivers from 9th to 13th place. So that's another about 4 to 5 positions. We'll be finding ourselves with the 34 and the 26 and the 25 looking to grab here in the next about probably 10 to 15 laps if they stay out there under green.
Speed change again. Shane Tyrion going to get around Hank Steinmiller. He'll take another turn at the front of the field. And as we're starting to close in, as you mentioned, if these drivers are looking at a potential two-stop strategy on lap 45, what about pit road? How difficult is it going to be for these drivers to get onto pit lane? Because I'm seeing these guys slipping and sliding around out there, and I know Texas Motor Speedway has a very flat apron as opposed to the banking off of turn 4. So how is that loose condition they're already experiencing on the banking going to play into their entrance onto pit road, potentially under green flag conditions?
I think the main thing that these drivers got to be worried about is the fact that the track is starting to heat up. We started with about 70 degrees was the track temp. It's now moved up to 73 degrees track temp wise, which is a degree higher than it was during qualifying. Means these cars are going to get even looser than they were previously. And the looser that they've been, the more wear and tear that they've gone on these tires, the harder it's going to be getting off the corner and also trying to slow down under braking. So it's going to be extremely tricky as the battle for the lead. Still side-by-side action as Steinmiller to the inside of that 38 machine.
Now, I know that obviously drivers started this race already knowing what their strategy was going to be of either a one or a two-stop race. But let's say that we end up having a driver that comes down pit road, they take on the tires for a two-stop strategy, to go out there and they turn some really good lap times. Does that maybe change up, call an audible on some of those drivers that planned originally for a one-stop strategy?
No, I think you still stick with your one-stop strategy unless you see that driver come back and possibly unlap themselves. Then maybe you might be thinking, hey, we might want to have to pull an audible here of switching up our game plan of pitting once and maybe pitting a little bit later and trying to wait out for caution to come out. But I think right when we start seeing pit road becoming very busy for these drivers, that's when we're going to have the question of when does a caution come out? Because I think these drivers are going to have a lot of trickier times. We've seen the loose sensation when drivers are on freshest tires, but when you have the combination of drivers on fresh and new on old tires and new tires, old tires and new, it's going to be tricky to see how they evolve.
All right, there, two different drivers, two different lanes through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Steinmiller had the advantage in 1 and 2, and then Tyrion on the bottom had the advantage through 3 and 4. So it almost looks like the faster way around the racetrack isn't necessarily the same groove in the opposite corners.
Yeah, it's going to be trying to figure out how they want to get through these corners for sure. Also, driver coming into the pits, I don't think that this was a scheduled stop. That's going to be the 19 of Randy Koking coming in. It is around that lap 40 to 45 marker that I was talking about. I think it might be a little bit too early if he was thinking about turning this into a two-stop race.
The one problem that drivers have if they are on that two-stop strategy is they're most certainly going to lose a lap here at Texas Motor Speedway, and if a caution comes out, they're going to find themselves trapped a lap down. As Shane Tyrion, I think he got the wall pretty good there off of 2.
relook and see how this 38 machine. Oh, yeah, he scrubbed it pretty good, losing that time back to 4/10. But I think it's not too bad. I think he should be able to still rebound and race pretty quick, even with that scrub.
Yeah, to your point, I think he hit it square. He might be all right. He did obviously lose a lot of momentum and thus a lot of time. Now a half second behind Hank Steinmiller. We got a battle brewing here for a spot inside of the top 5. Christopher Morris Jr. trying to reel in the pole sitter Caden Thur. Then behind them, you got another battle that's starting to brew just inside the top 10. Joseph Causey trying to close in on the 19 of Cooper Johnson, and it's going to be Christopher Morris Jr. in the 3. He's coming to pit road, so really the first of our race leaders to begin the first of what will be 2 pit stops, the 2-stop strategy.
Yeah, this is the start of that zone for these drivers. I think lap 45, like we just saw here, as well to lap 50 to 55 is the drivers that are thinking about turning this into a 2-stop. If you're thinking about turning this into a 1-stop, you're pushing it to about 60 to 65, maybe even lap 70, if you can get your fuel to last that long for these drivers that are really going to be stretching.
It's going to be interesting, too, to see how many drivers adapt which strategy. Sometimes we see only 2 or 3 drivers go with the 2-stop strategy, while everybody else would be inclined to go with the 1-stop. Sometimes we get a split 50-50, and so we're going to start to get an idea here with Christopher Morris Jr. pitting from inside of the top 10 of just who exactly is going to adapt that 2-stop strategy, because I don't think they can wait much longer, and looks like, nope, I thought we had another driver coming down. That's the 7 of Jackson McLaren, who appears to be having some internet problems.
It doesn't look like this might have been a scheduled stop. The 3 machine is still in pit road, getting damage repair, it looks like, as Christopher Morris Jr. just getting out of the pits now, and usually when you're in pit stops for around 45 seconds under pit road, that's more of a speeding penalty. One of the reasons why you'll be in pit road for so long, but he was on pit road trying to get repairs done out to 54 seconds. That's looking like he's got major damage on that 3 machine that he had to get repaired.
And that drops him not 1 but 2 laps down now to the race leaders. So it's going to be a long day for Christopher Morris Jr. here to try and get enough lucky dogs to get back onto the lead lap and into contention again. Came to pit road from the 8th position at the time.
And a pass was just made for 7th place. Cooper Johnson able to move up to 7th place. The 22 machine slowly and methodically has been moving his way up, and it's been a great run. Started back in 14th, now up to 7th.
And like we said back in qualifying, a lot of drivers have come into this series making their debuts and really been pleasant surprises, and Cooper Johnson add him to that list, as I think we got a driver coming to pit road here. DJ DeMarzo in the 5 machine is indeed going to come to pit lane.
Yeah, it's still in that zone of turning this into a 2-stop race, so DeMarzo going to be just looking for a way to come into the pits, make sure he doesn't speed. Now you got to remember, these drivers are going around 100 and about 60 miles per hour at their lowest through these corners. They have to now drop that down by 100 miles per hour plus to about 50 miles per hour for pit road. We're seeing more drivers in. Blaine Atkins going to be following suit into pit road.
Blaine's going to be pitting from the, I believe,
He's up at
12th
around
position.
Yeah.
And he was one of the drivers that was really struggling as well with the loose conditions. So I would have to assume that even if he wanted to go with the 1-stop strategy, those rear tires might not have allowed him to make it that far.
Driver that has really good late speed here is going to be Caden Thor. We saw a drop all the way outside of the top 10. He's back up to 3rd place now into the pits. It's going to be Jackson McLaren in the 7 machine, as well as, I believe, Peyton Hill following suit.
2 more drivers coming to pit lane here, and this almost begs the question. I know that, you were talking about drivers coming around this time on the 2-stop strategy, but is it possible, just possible, that some of these guys like Blaine Atkin, Peyton Hill coming to pit road here, that they could make it the rest of the way? I mean, what is the absolute maximum these drivers could make it on a tank of fuel?
I believe the max of these drivers can go is possibly, I think, 70 to, I believe, 72 at most. But I mean, that's when you're really in save mode and you're saving right from the start. I'm expecting a lot of these drivers, mostly 65 is the limit. They really want to push those cars to possibly 70. But it's going to be extremely close for the drivers that are going to be turning this into a one-stop race. I think for the mentality of a one-stop race is save that set of tires just in case some type of caution comes out for any of the machine. As we're looking at waiting for more drivers into the pits, it looks like Ernest King just got done with service as well for that 24 machine as we wait for more to be coming into the pits.
O'Brady also came to pit road. Peyton Hamlet makes the dive to pit lane this time as we're watching a four-way battle for the fourth position. That is Kyle Johnson, John Whitendorf, Cooper Johnson, and I believe you have a lap machine intermingled with this as well. I think that's the 21 of Benjamin Staples just up ahead of them. Jeff Green, you see just in the background there, about 7 car lengths back, but they were wadded up about double wide 2 rows deep just in this little group of 4 for a brief moment.
Yeah, I believe Tom Bourne was one of those drivers in that fourth car in that group. He pulled it into the pits and now going to be coming out. And for most of these drivers, if you were so far back against our leaders when you were coming to the pit, it will actually put you 2 laps down. So some of these drivers have to be very concerned on how far back they are right now running, as up front, Steinmiller's just gapped himself ever since we saw Shane Terrian get up into the wall and scrubbing that time. I think maybe there was a little bit of damage and hoping maybe for a caution for this 38 machine just so we can get that damage repaired.
Tyler Riggs had moved his way up to 12th before he makes his first pit stop of the day. Here comes Jeff Green down pit road. He was in the 8th position at the time of coming to the attention of his crew.
Still watching and waiting. There is a battle here for 9th place. Gerald Campbell able to get by Jay Cowanshell, and then you've also got the fresher tires of Randy Koken trying to get by these machines. And I talked about how the fresh new tires against the older tires, it's going to get tricky for some of these machines. And where this 19 car is gets things really interesting as going to the pits. It's going to be Johnson, Causey, and Johnson and Causey as well as Johnson.
And somebody...
Oh, Campbell gets hit by Koken! And we talked about the issues of some drivers having to come to the pits. Koken's been before.
It's Blaine Akin, I think, that just got swept up in that. Caution's going to come out.
And due to the fact that Tom Bourne was the first car 1 lap down, he'll be getting the lucky dog. Oh, wait, no, maybe it's Seth Harrelson and others. It's now they're being passed. Oh, this is going to get things really tricky because at the time of the yellow, Tom Bourne was the driver that was 1 lap down. But now that our leaders have passed the machines, let's wait and see who gets that lucky dog position.
This is going to change up a lot in terms of who's going to be where, who's going to be on the lead lap when we go back green. And the interesting thing I see about this is that 3 drivers, actually make it 4 drivers that decided to stay out here the longest and will stay on the lead lap as a result. It's your top 4 in the point standing: Steinmiller, Whitendorf, Campbell, and Houndshell.
Biggest thing, though, Campbell did get contact, so he'll gonna have to come in, get some damage repair on this pit stop. But due to the fact that there's only 9 drivers on the lead lap, 10 drivers right now until we see all these other machines take waiver rounds, gonna be interesting to see where some of these drivers lay after all this pit stop, because this is around the marker where we were about to see the one pit stop window open, about 5 laps short of that opening really to come into fruition. So this is going to be close for some of these drivers that were trying to aim for a 1 stop and save that set of tires for the final 20 laps.
Rather minor contact, I would say, there in turn 2, bringing out this first caution of the day, nearing the halfway point of this race. And you mentioned about drivers having to make sure that they tiptoe their way through the drivers with the older tires. Randy Koken just got a heck of a run with those fresher tires into the back of Campbell. Campbell was able to save it, and then Randy Koken tried going down to the apron to avoid running the 25 anymore. That's what snapped him around. Unfortunately, Blaine Akin was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I don't think that he hit the wall. If anything, just a little bit of damage maybe to the right front.
Yeah, and I always talked about how the tire difference was going to be a factor for bringing out a yellow. We saw it there. Koken just had so much more speed to carry through the corners, and also had the launch that was much better than the older tires, and just not enough space trying to cut his way through traffic.
James Goshen's going to lead his first lap of the season, as now he'll come down pit road. There is a 5 bonus for leading a lap here in the series.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Shane Terrian was just put in the worst situation, and it just gets worse. As Staple was driving so high, even though he was trying to come into the pits, he made Shane Terrian have to come to a complete stop, which when he tried to get back up to speed, he came running into Shane Lake.
You can see the front end damage there, just underneath the Dodge logo.
I mean, he didn't want to come into the pits. It was Shane Lake just came to a complete stop for some reason as well. I mean, a lot of confusion under traffic, and Staple came down super late in front of the 38 machine, and I'm so confused on why Lake stopped, because then it just made to where Terrian had nowhere to go, and oh my goodness, drama here under caution.
And it looks like Tyrion, they're on the apron. I don't know if he's coming up to get his spot back or if he's indicating he's going to come down pit road to get that damage repaired. We'll wait and see what happens here off of turn 4. I would assume he's going to have to get that damage repaired, because especially the front end of the race car is the important one for the straightaway speed, but he actually is going to stay out. So that's going to be something we'll have to follow up here when we go back green.
Yeah, you might be wondering, why was Shane Terrian so far back and why is he cutting through the field? It's because Staple, who was a lap car, cut in front of the 38 and lose all of this ground, and now he's trying to just get back to where he was before.
Currently looks like it was Tom Bourne was the recipient of the free pass. We have a couple of drivers that are scored on the tail end of the lead lap that I think took the wave around. Those would include Kyle Johnson, Cooper Johnson, Joseph Causey, Jeff Green, Blaine Atkin, Tyler Riggs, and Bo Brady. So 18 cars will be on the lead lap when we go back green. It's Hank Steinmiller, the leader, Shane Terrian second, John Whitendorf, Caden Thur, Gerald Campbell, the top 5. Then Robert Kenny, Jay Counshell, Anthony Guarneri, James Roth, and James Goshen. That's the top 10. Those were the drivers that were on the lead lap at the time that this first caution came out.
I mean, just looking at the fact that the drivers on just seeing the fact that everyone is based on their damage that who has it, I would say Hank Steinmiller looking very clean. If we stay green to the end, to be a driver to watch out for that could possibly win this race, just because Shane Terrian, with that damage that he got from Staple as well with Shane Lake, we'll see how he can move on from here. It's going to be a great launch from there of Steinmiller, and now we continue to watch and see how fast is the 38 car now, as he was pretty equal with the 63 on that first green flag stint.
We're going to maybe now see a more aggressive Gerald Campbell as well, because as we mentioned, he didn't get to qualify after a spin off turn 4 during the qualifying session, started at the rear of the field, so he had to kind of preserve his tires as he worked his way up to the front. But then he was up inside the top 10, caught that caution, restarts here in the 5th spot, and all of a sudden, he's now up into the podium. He just moved to 3rd.
Yeah, and there's also seems to be a little bit of drama going on in the middle of the field of cars trying to cut their way through. His caution in the back.
Jason Hounsell.
It looks like it was Ernest King that might have got spun in that 24 machine.
Phoenix winner. A lot of damage on the front of that machine.
Oh, it looks like it all started with Lake, who drifted up into the wall, and Jason Hounsell trying to avoid him, makes contact. Christopher Morse Jr. also making contact.
Saw damage there as well on the 81 of Shane Lake. We'll go back and see what happened here on the front straightaway. It was practically 3 wide off of turn 4. Wow. Hamlin, I think, got a piece. Tyler Riggs was able to avoid. Couldn't tell who that car was off on the left side of the screen. We can go back, get another angle here. Yeah, Hounsell just kind of... I don't know if it was because of the D-shaped front straightaway that it caused that contact, with maybe the 81 coming down a little bit, or the 00 coming up a little bit, but catastrophic results, and still really wasn't able to pinpoint that other car that got the damage there up on the top side. Might have been the 24 of Ernest King, actually.
Yeah, I think it was Ernest King that was that driver. Ernest King got spun by Bo Brady, and then Bo Brady had nowhere to go after spinning the 24 machine.
See if we can go on board here with Christopher Morse Jr. See what he saw. Went off of turn 4. Was right behind this too. There's just no reaction time available when something like this happens. There you see the contact with the right front.
I was coking another driver involved with that, as well as Hamlin. Gosh.
Again, we have to stress the fact that these drivers do not have any fast repairs. So the damage they sustained here, they either have to come down and get it manually repaired, or basically make that hard left-hand turn to the garage area.
And, you know, I was re-looking even further back to see why they were, yes, we were under the restart, but they also were starting to go 3 wide and more clustered back because Kyle Johnson kind of got shuffled back after being cut off by Tom Bourne, who Tom Bourne was also cut off by Staples. So there was a chain reaction before that. We even saw the incident brought out our yellow. So, you know, just a lot of drivers trying to make sure that they've got themselves in the best situation. This yellow actually sets some drivers up to feel a lot more comfortable to actually make it to the end, I would believe, with fuel-wise, as going into the pits, Tom Bourne in the 54 machine.
Also helps a number of drivers that took the wave around there get back in the lead lap. I'm not 100% certain of who the lucky dog driver would be. Possibly the 7 of Jackson McLaren, I think, but we're going to have to wait for the official word on that one.
Either going to be Jackson, or it actually might be Tyler Riggs in that 26 machine that could have gotten the lucky dog.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we saw Tyler Riggs actually make a great avoidance of the wreck, splitting the then spinning Bo Brady car and Shane Lake, going down between them and the inside wall. So we'll put Tyler Riggs back in the lead lap. It's like 19 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back. Green, Randy Koking, Ernest King, they still sit on pit road, along with Shane Lake getting damage repaired. Bo Brady did actually come back out onto the racetrack. Take a look at this 20 car. They got the front back on, you know, just underneath the headlights, but you can still see a lot of damage there on the right front. And we talked about the front end damage that Shane Tyrion had, how that would affect him. There's no doubt that's going to really affect the speed out of this 20 machine.
Yeah, and it's going to kind of be, instead of cutting through the air like a knife, it's now going to be cutting through the wind kind of like a brick wall, with how crunched up that front bumper is for the 20, and expecting him to be extremely off the pace. But I'm imagining that he feels like he's got enough power. That power has not gone down to that 20 machine. That's why he feels like he'd be out here, and also just trying to get as many points as possible as up front. It's going to be Steinmiller as well as Shane Terrian trying to get us to the green.
Bo Brady, of course, as we mentioned, former winner this season, but there's no playoffs in the Grand National Series. It's all about accumulating the most points during the course of the season. So, yeah, if he can stay out there and even just salvage a top 15 finish, looking to have a good points day with a wounded race car, I think that he'd probably be more than happy with that. Driver that has been on a hot streak as of late, number of top 5 finishes, including a win back at Phoenix a couple of weeks ago. But it's going to be Hank Steinmiller on point, Shane Tyrion second, Gerald Campbell third, pole sitter Caden Thurin fourth, and John Whitendorf is going to complete the top 5. Our top 4 in the standings are up inside of the top 10 right now as we go back green.
Go back green. Shane Tyrion going to be dropping down in front of Gerald Campbell, trying to stop that 25's momentum. And I think this is going to be a good showing of where Campbell lays with our front 5. As we have our pole sitter of Caden Thor up here, as well as Hank Steinmiller, who's just been leading most of the laps here this race. Excited to see what Gerald Campbell's going to do after his way of traveling throughout the pack and cutting through traffic.
Well, I know Gerald Campbell would have loved to have gotten his 4th pole of the season, had that clean racetrack to himself getting this race started. I almost think that maybe starting at the back gave him a little bit of an added advantage over some of the other drivers up here, because he knows what his car is capable of doing in working his way through traffic the longer the run goes on.
Yeah, and also you got to think that, you know, Shane Terrian, he's got to be thinking about how he's able to attack now with that little bit of damage that he's gotten, and hoping that's just a little bit of cosmetic damage, not going to be hurting Arrow too much. But also wait and see. I think most of these drivers thinking they don't have to pit unless a caution comes out with the final 30 to possibly 20 laps to go. Then maybe they'll come into the pits and take tires. But I think right now everyone is in tire saving mode, so that even though we're seeing Steinmiller pull away, I'm expecting to see some of these drivers pull back as wow, the 88 of Kyle Johnson went almost all the way down to the inside wall trying to make a pass here on Blaine Atkin.
Yeah, got up there almost into the left rear tire of Blaine Atkin in that battle for the 10th positions. So corner racing between those two, and let's not forget these two have a little history.
Oh boy!
And there goes Kyle Johnson up into the wall. Blaine Atkin going to spin around in front of the field as well. Everybody, I think, is going to avoid the 0-5 as he brings it down to the apron. I was going to say, don't forget, these two have a little bit of history back at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway when Kyle Johnson put a huge block on Blaine Atkin in the closing stages of that race.
I think this was just a tendency of figuring out when someone else is going to be diving it a little bit harder than the other. Johnson came up in front of Blaine Atkin at a time where I don't think Atkin was planning on letting off at all and completely just drove through the 88. Well, that was just a mixture of both drivers looking for the same spot, and, contact was inevitable to happen between those two drivers.
Incredible that this was a battle for 10th just after a restart, and only two drivers were involved in this one, the two that made the contact. Boy, was that Cooper that barely made it through there, Cooper Johnson in that 19 car? I wonder what his heart rate was like.
I think also that would have been the 3 machine that was getting a little bit nervous after that. A little bit of a scare. Man, a lot of these drivers trying to make bold moves early on. I mean, you're this close to one another, so you're going to be trying to make as many aggressive moves as possible. And, looking at some of the contact of drivers that were heading towards where Blaine was, I think Seth Harrelson might have made contact with the 3 and almost pushed him up into Atkin there as they were coming through 1 and 2.
So caution's going to fly for the 3rd time here tonight, and you were talking about these drivers in tire conservation mode, pretty much good to go on fuel. With the aid of this yellow, it's going to make it even more so of a possibility, I would assume, of being able to make it on what they've got in the tank.
Yeah, but now you're starting to see a lot more drivers coming into the pits trying to get repairs done because of the cautions. It just seems like cautions are just going to breed cautions from this point on. It's going to be a question of if we can even get a long green flag run of over 20 laps or even over 15 laps at this point, just because the aggression level is going to pick up. Some of the drivers that you talked about how their storylines throughout the season, that's something that might continue on from here on out, and looking on how certain drivers are going to be racing around one another. And I'm curious. I mean, I'm looking up front, some of the drivers up front. Jake Houshell, who usually is pretty calm on how he races around these courses, he's been caught up in a lot of different wrecks throughout the season. He might have put in a little bit of aggression here later on in this race.
It's interesting. You brought up 2 names of drivers that might have made little contact while trying to avoid that wreck. Seth Harrelson and Christopher Morse Jr. Those two at the time were battling for the lucky dog position, and it looks like Seth Harrelson was ahead of the 3 when that caution came out. So Harrelson's going to be the one back on the lead lap, leaving us with 21 drivers on the lead lap when we get back to green flag racing.
Well, I'm looking and seeing. I don't even know if he's really going to be that driver that gets the lucky dog position. That could be going to Jason Hounshell, just because of the fact that, we're still looking and seeing who that driver is going to be, because there's a chance that because they made contact while the caution came out, they could have been technically involved in that accident. And with that technicality, they'll be giving someone else the lucky dog.
A couple of drivers here that we've seen up in the top 10. They've come down pit road and topped off the fuel tank. One that's jumping up in the forefront of my noticing is Tom Bourne in the 54, and he actually had come down pit road and topped off the fuel tank under the last caution. So I know that most of these drivers, pretty much, they're good to go on fuel. So what would be the purpose of coming down, topping off the fuel tank for the 54, giving up maybe 3 or 4 positions on track?
Well, they should be good, quote unquote, but some of these drivers, they filled up with over 70, almost 80 laps they need to run. And now I think Bourne might be thinking, hey, even with these pace laps, they might not have enough fuel, even with save mode, to be able to make it to the end. I just want to make sure I'm good to make it to the end. Also might be thinking about getting slight damage repair if needed.
See how that plays out as Christopher Morse Jr. is actually coming down pit road this time. Not seeing anybody that's gone around to take the lucky dog here, so there may not actually have been a free pass machine under this yellow flag. As Steinmiller, Campbell, Thur, Houndshell, and Whitendorf, they'll be the ones to get us back green. How about James Roth up here in 6th? Anthony Guarneri, we talked in qualifying how he needs a good run. He's been spiraling out of control last couple of weeks. He's currently going to be in 6th position, with Roth actually in 7th. Cooper Johnson in his debut in 8th. Jeff Green and James Goshen right now completing the top 10. So we got some names up here inside the top 10 we're not used to seeing. Could have an underdog story here tonight, Sam.
I think my biggest surprise has to be James Goshen, and the fact that 85 machine is up in the top 10. A great showing so far as we've passed the halfway marker. We'll see if Goshen can continue this and slowly march his way even further in the top 10.
James Goshen coming into this race finds himself with a limited number of starts, 31st in points, an average finish of 23rd, but he's head and shoulders above that right now as Hank Steinmiller gets us back underway.
Something we haven't really talked about, that's the fact that Shane Terrian did come into the pits this caution, so he'll be back in about 12th position, that 38 machine. We'll see if he can cut his way through. With them coming in, he's another part of those drivers that came in just to get fuel. So question of fuel is still something that's looming over some of these drivers' heads. We'll continue to watch and see.
Top 3 got single file. Now top 5 make it 6 will get single file as Guarneri around the top side will make the pass for 4th on Caden Thur, but it's a hornet's nest just inside the top 10 where you find Roth, Green, Tyrion, and others.
Yeah, Roth's going to be leading that charge of drivers, and right now kind of in a precarious situation. He's got Jeff Green, who we've been seeing running in the top 5, has a lot of speed. Shane Terrian with a lot of speed. Also Kazi in that 8 machine. He's got some momentum, but here comes Green to the inside of the 4.
Green gonna try and take that 8th position away. Got his left sides right down there on the white line, but he was able to keep it pretty well underneath him. That is going to bring Shane Tyrion, though, with a side-by-side battle into the vicinity. Tyrion thinking about maybe going 3 wide. We'll see.
And as those drivers are battling on, a pass for the lead has happened. It's going to be Gerald Campbell to the point, leading this lap.
Campbell looking for his 3rd win of the season and trying to combat the poor performance he had last week at Auto Club. He got around Steinmiller. Steinmiller's not going away quietly, though. He closes back up to the bumper of the DuPont Chevrolet.
Yeah, Steinmiller's kind of feeling the pressure that's going to be coming with Jake Houndshell, and that 0-2 is going to be coming with a head of steam here, trying to stay close. And, you know, we saw Jake having his issues. He went spinning with Bo Brady earlier. He's now rebounded and come back. And now going to be in 3rd place, right on the back bumper of the 63. Might want to go on the outside, trying to pick and choose which lane is going to be moving the fastest here.
Nose to tail, top 3. Throw a blanket over him. Campbell, Steinmiller, Houndshell. That's 3 of the top 4 in the point standings coming in to tonight's event. Just an update as well. The driver that indeed did get the lucky dog under the last caution was the 7 of Jackson McLaren. So we currently have 20 cars on the lead lap with him getting the free pass.
Also an update on the driver that is just DNF. That's going to be Shane Lake trying to run that hashtag Lake Strong machine. Not able to finish out this race, but still a strong performance, and we're hoping for the best for Heather moving forward.
Absolutely, as John Whitendorf now moves into the 5th position, so your top 4 in points now up inside 4 of the top 5 positions. Anthony Guarneri, the lone driver there that is not inside the top 4 in points. He's currently holding down that 4th position, as behind them, Shane Tyrion restarted back. It was the 13th position. He's now up to 8th, and it's looking like that front end damage hasn't really affected him that much. Looks like he's still got a pretty strong car. He's just having to work his way through traffic again, much like he had to do in the beginning stages of this race.
And just like that up front, pass for 2nd place. Also might be a pass for 3rd place, as here comes Guarneri under Campbell there. His 25 machine's dropping back, and he might be in tire saving mode. We've seen this previously in other races, and I think he might be recognizing, hey, this could be a long run. Got to save these tires for later on.
Pretty much everyone that's come to pit road under the last 2 cautions, they've come down and just topped off the fuel tank. Everybody's out there still on the same lap of tires, I do believe. There may have been a couple of drivers that might have taken on that final set here, but almost kind of very much doubt it. I think they'd want to hold on to that 2nd and final set in case we get a late race yellow.
As to watch and see, I mean, that late race yellow is always something that's going to be looming over these drivers' minds of, hey, we got to make this stop at some point. But just looking at how everyone is running.
Speaking of stops, scheduled here for Blaine Akin, I think.
I think so.
Brady's on pit road as well in the 20. Oh no, actually he's wrecked. He's wrecked in the back straightaway.
Bo Brady's trying to back up, but here comes traffic. They're coming with that steam. He's got to get going quick here. But it was Randy Koking that got loose onto the apron that moved up into the 20 machine, causing that incident. But we stay green.
It has been a tough day for our Phoenix winner, Bo Brady. That is at least the third incident he has been collected up in here, beginning half of this race. Now the bad luck continues as it looks like he has had to teleport his car to pit road. Blaine Atkins still sits on pit lane in 05. Randy Koking on pit road as well. Battle for the lead about to take place. Jake Hounshell trying to reel in Hank Steinmiller. Both these drivers still looking to put a 1 in the win column this season.
Question that's going through my brain, though, is this move and this aggression that we're seeing from Hounshell a little too early? I don't think Steinmiller's really pushing this car to its fullest potential at the moment. I think he might be saving and waiting. And then also, update, I think Bo Brady is done for the day. His engine is blown. He is most likely done and will not be able to finish out this race.
Well, I'm going to go to the question you were just asking there, because last night when I was calling the RTG race at Michigan, I asked one of the drivers that finished in the top 3 because they started really pushing it after the halfway point. And I was saying, normally we don't see you guys push it that much. Normally you don't get that aggressive until around 10 to go. And he said what you had to do was set yourself up position-wise for that final round of green flag pit stop. So, if there is the possibility that we end up having a late race caution come out and these drivers have to come to pit road, they want to be the highest possible in the running order to make sure they're going to be the farthest up at the front as possible with however many laps there may be left.
And I think that's why we're also seeing Guarneri up to 3rd place, and he's running down our front too, as he's within a half a second of our leader. Anthony Guarneri in this 16 machine, he's coming with a head of steam, and that last lap was the fastest of our 3.
Anthony Guarneri with that Steve Park throwback. He's got Sim Helper on the hood. Sim Helper is the website that we're currently using to be able to keep track of the point standings here for the G-Force Grand National Series, as he's going to dive it to the inside here of Jake Hounshell, looking to move to 2nd.
Anthony Guarneri, a great move on his part, and then also looking back for the battle for 4th place. John Whitendorf trying to make the pass here on Campbell, and it looks like he's got it done.
At 2nd in points, bypassing the points leader. I have a feeling these two are going to find themselves in the same place on track for the next 5 weeks, because these two have started to close up that battle for the championship down the home stretch.
Add 2 more drivers to the DNF pile. That's going to be Randy Koking, who got caught up with Bo Brady and ruining Bo Brady's day here at the end. And then also Benjamin Staple in that 21 machine. He is also done for the day.
Battle going on here for the 6th position. It's Cooper Johnson trying to reel in Caden Thur for 6th. You got Shane Tyrion back there in the 8th spot. That's kind of where Shane stalled out in. He hasn't really made any more forward progress. So now we kind of have the question mark of, is that the front end damage coming into play, or is he in tire conservation mode?
I think he's in wait mode. I think the drivers in front of him are kind of trying to push it as far ahead like you talked about. I think they're expecting to see a caution pop up at some point. I think Shane Terry might be in that. Hold on, let's wait, see where things go. Also, we talked about Tom Bourne. He was one of those drivers that had a late pit, like he pitted one of the last cars to pit to make sure he was full of fuel at the end here. He's moved himself up to 11th place and at the tail end of this long chain of cars.
It's picked up 6 spots since we went back green, restarted back in the 17th position as further up here towards the front, we've got them all wadded up from 6th place on back. Caden Thur, Cooper Johnson, Shane Tyrion. They're actually starting to reel in the 25 of Gerald Campbell as well. So it's about to become a pack of maybe 5 or 6 cars.
Yeah, and it's going to get very hectic up here as a battle for 6th place, side-by-side action. Looks like Thor going to be under pressure as Cooper Johnson to the inside, and also Shane Tyrion trying to follow suit. He might use his bumper to try to push this 22 car away.
You see the 57 on that top side kind of struggling here, but remember, he was one of the drivers you kind of pointed out when we got close to that round of green flag pit stops coming around, how that 57 seemed to be really good the longer the run went on. So we'll see as he loses a couple of spots here if he's going to be able to gain them back, if indeed we do go green to the finish.
Yeah, we saw Thor. He got our pole position. He dropped outside of the top 10 and then made a charge up to 3rd place. So This 57 machine, he's not out of it yet. He looks like he is struggling at the moment, but I think it's just because he doesn't have a short run car. He's really set it up for the longer run, and you're seeing it right now as he is running in 8th place. Just wait for another 15 to 20 laps. He might be finding himself up the top 5.
Driver that would love to see a caution come out. He's running only a couple of cars behind that battle we were showing. That's the 07 of Seth Harrelson. Right now in 19th place. He is the first car 1 lap down, and he's got about 5 seconds between himself and the next lap down machine of Christopher Morse Jr. So if a caution were to come out here in the final 40 laps, Harrelson would find himself back on the lead lap. Still plenty of time for something like that to happen, but those laps continue to whittle away, then the urgency starts to ramp up a little bit.
We saw how Weitendorf made the pass on Gerald Campbell. Well, it looks like Campbell wants that position back. 25 machine pressuring the 33, and to the inside, Gerald Campbell go.
Talked about coming into tonight's broadcast how we've run 2.5 mile tracks so far. That's where Gerald Campbell has taken his 2 trips to victory lane, trying to go for the 1.5 mile sweep here in the first 3 races of the season. He's now marched his way up to the 4th position, but has to make up about 1.3 seconds before he gets up there to the 63 of Hank Steinmiller.
Yeah, and then you got Hank Steinmiller, who now has got Guarneri, going to be a little bit over a half a second, almost 0.6 off of our leader. And I think we're starting to see the difference of drivers that are in push and trying to get ahead as soon as possible, and other drivers that are kind of in save mode, as everyone's running pretty similar lap times, but questioning when we get to about 20 laps to go, who's going to make that late charge, find themselves up front.
I think the roles have reversed. I think the drivers that were in save mode, they've now gone into push mode like Campbell and Tyrion. The drivers that were in push mode, they've now gone to save mode as Jason Hounshell, the lap machine, is on pit road. This would undoubtedly be an unscheduled stop for his machine. Was scored 1 lap down in the 21st position before hitting pit lane.
Yeah, he also going to add another machine to the DNF pile. That's going to be Blaine Atkin in the 05. He has officially parked it for the day.
And we saw him on pit road for what we thought was an unscheduled pit stop. Not sure what exactly happened to him, but tough break there for our Richmond winner. Blaine came into this race 8th in points. We could very well be heading into next week's race at USA with him outside of the top 10 in the point standings. As good battle here, Cooper Johnson and John Weitendorf. Johnson was able to get around Weitendorf a couple of laps ago, and now Weitendorf trying to get back up to the bumper of that 19 machine.
Yeah, right now Weitendorf is running about 1/10 to 2/10 slower, than the top about 8 drivers. So I'm expecting to see Weitendorf probably drop another position or 2. His 33 machine is just looking so off the pace, but he's also got to be careful because Thor behind him seems to be having some connection issues, still blinking in and out for the 57.
Almost wonder if this could maybe be a battle for the race win going on between the 25 and the 38 of Campbell and Tyrion. They are the 2 fastest cars on track at the moment in terms of their average lap times, and they're battling side by side for 4th place just behind Jake Hounshell.
We also got to put the factor in. Campbell is not pitted. He's part of the group that pitted about 40 laps ago, while Tyrion pitted about 27 laps ago, about to be 28, trying to pack full of fuel. So we know that, the rest of the field, they might be in save mode, not just for tires, but also for fuel once we get later on in this race.
You got to wonder how many drivers, if we do manage to run these final 32 laps under green, how many of them might be kicking themselves when they had the opportunity there under this last caution to come down, take on that final set of tires, because it would have been interesting to see how fresh tires on this run would have done against what would have been about 20-25 lap older tires that most of these guys are out there on when we went back green flag racing.
Issues for the 4 machine that happened about 4 laps ago, as it looks like James Roth hammered the inside wall coming out of 4 and is in the pits trying to get damage repair, but Roth, who had a top 10 machine, had the pace. He is now parked it in 23rd position, trying to get that damage repair and back out there on track.
Break there. That was a driver that caught a break with that first caution coming out and was inside the top 10 as a result. 13th in points coming into this race, and that could be a good points day for the Coca-Cola Chevrolet, is right now scored 5 laps down in 23rd, and will probably finish somewhere in that vicinity here this evening, as Tom Bourne He had a bit of a moment there with Jeff Green and Joseph Causey, as Green's going to get around him. Bourne, as you mentioned, one of the drivers that we think is one of the confirmed that could make it on fuel, and he hasn't really been able to charge his way up there like drivers Campbell and Tyrion.
Oh, speaking of drivers not being able to make it possibly into the pits, gotta watch out. There's a lot of cars that most likely are going to come in. Steinmiller is coming in, as well as Weitendorf.
This is really interesting because they're coming down pit road 45 laps into a set of tires. We know that they're going to lose a lap.
They have to take 4.
Yeah, exactly. So, boy, I don't know, because I still think, to your point, there's going to be drivers out there that are going to try and stretch this thing to the end on fuel. So I don't see this as a race-winning strategy. Even if we were to get a caution, I don't see it as a race-winning strategy.
And oh my goodness, Hank Steinmiller might have been caught speeding as he's still in pit road.
Oh man, Hank Steinmiller, who's led the most laps here today, pitted from the lead, and just like that, his race goes up in smoke. A couple of other drivers have actually gone to the garage area as well here. Ernest King has gone into the garage area, and Peyton Hamlet. So we now have a total of 8 drivers in the garage area as we're closing in on 25 laps to go, and your battle for the lead is starting to close up. Anthony Guarneri has the spot, but there is a 3-car tandem behind him of Tyrion Hounshell and Cooper Johnson reeling him in.
Cooper Johnson has been the fastest car on track the last 3 laps, and he's been gaining on Shane Terrian. I think that's another reason why Terrian has kind of figured out, oh, I got to go now, because that 19 machine is coming with a head of steam right now. Is going to be Jake Hounshell, going to be in that buffer for both those drivers. As Guarneri, he's got to be trying to push it right now as well. And, you know, with the fact that we just saw our front 2 having to come into the pits, most likely everyone else that has not pitted yet, which you got to put in that of Anthony Guarneri, Jake Hounshell, Cooper Johnson, as well as Jeff Green, they're going to have to think about coming to the pits as well following those drivers, unless they found a way to save fuel.
Johnson's going to take the 3rd spot away here from Jake Hounshell. You know, talking about the possibility of Cooper Johnson maybe winning his debut race. Only one other driver has done that this season. That was in the season opener at Nashville Fairgrounds, where Jacob Putman was able to go to victory lane. Shane Tyrion almost won in his debut race at Phoenix, but had to wait a week later at Auto Club Speedway, as Guarneri continues to show the way. And right now, in terms of the drivers that have been out there the longest since coming to pit road, the 2 of Jeff Green has been out there 53 laps. Cooper Johnson's been out there for 52 laps, and Gerald Campbell's been out there for 51 laps. So this is going to be interesting to see if those drivers have saved enough to be able to make it to the end.
I mean, Campbell went from a driver that was battling for the lead and now has dropped all the way down to 9th place. You got to think that that has to be a factor of him realizing I got to save fuel, or maybe his tires are finally shot out. It's hard to tell what is going on with this 25 machine, but it is not looking good with him falling back as far as he has.
While he has dropped back, Jeff Green is moving forward. He just went around in Thur to move up into the 5th position. On Weitendorf, trying to get by Joseph Causey. Remember, he came to pit road, so he is on a mission to try and at least get up there and get his lap back the hard way. Whoa! Got loose there on the top side of Kane Thur, and he's going to brush the wall off of 4.
Yeah, and this is going to be a factor, especially with the fact that we've seen a couple of drivers come into the pits. They've gotten their fresher tires. They're now going to be driving around the older ones, and the possibility of seeing what we saw for our first real caution of the day, it's possible we could be seeing that once again with less than 20 laps to go.
It looks like the drivers on the older tires, they're not willing to give up the bottom. John Weitendorf's having to go to the 2nd groove around the outside to make the passes. It's not exactly been a lane that's been tried in terms of trying to make passes for position, with the possible exception of very early on restarts.
Here goes Weitendorf to the inside, trying to get by Green. Green giving that position there and letting Weitendorf go. As up front, Shane Terrian really hasn't cut down that lead too much. Cooper Johnson was coming with head of steam. He's kind of stalled out now, and I think it's the question of, we know Terrian's good to make it to the end on fuel. Is the other two of Granary and also Johnson able to make it to the end?
Gerald Campbell, I think that right there told the tail off of turn 4. He was way out of the throttle on the inside line, let Tyler Riggs on by. And I think he is in major fuel-saving mode right now, is that 25 machine, which has me really scared for some of these other guys like Guarneri, Cooper Johnson, Jake Hounshell, Jeff Green, Caden Thur, because they're all right around the same number as Campbell.
Seth Harrelson hard into the outside wall out of 4, and that was a major contact. It wasn't one of those scrapes we've been talking about. I think he might have lost a little bit of a fender there.
Kyle Johnson's on pit road in the 88 machine. James Goshen now comes to pit road. So, this is turning into what mile and a halves are normally known for, of who can stretch it the furthest to the end on what they've got in the tank.
No of the drivers that are up front that have pitted already. No for sure Shane Terrian is good, as well as Joseph Causey in 7th place and Tom Bourne 8th place, as well as Robert Kenny, Tyler Riggs. It's all the drivers that we haven't called out. Those are everyone else that's in very much danger zones. We haven't really seen Granary try to save fuel, but also coming through really 7th through about 4th place, we've got ourselves AJ DiMarzio as well as Hank Steinmiller. They're making their charge through this pack, and it's looking a little sketchy for themselves.
Talked about maybe max 72 laps for these drivers. Right now, if Guarneri were to run it to the end, he would be out there for 74 laps on what he has in the tank. Granted, he would have had the opportunity under 2 of those caution periods to save a little bit, but would he be able to save those extra 2 laps? And now he's got bigger things to worry about. Here comes Shane Terrian. Here comes Jake Hounshell. They're going to battle for second, see who's going to be the one to challenge Guarneri for the lead.
Yeah, and Hounshell is going to be trying to follow suit, but that's going to be Whitendorf on the outside, making the pass in the 33, going to be unlapping himself, so if a caution does come out, he will be on the last end of the lead lap, and most likely due to the fact that most drivers going to pit, putting himself in a better position. As Granari's got to be careful here. He's got Kyle Johnson. He's got to give some space. And due to the fact he dropped up, here comes Shane Terrian to the inside.
Shane Terrian says, thank you very much. You opened the door. I'm going to stick my foot in. And he's going to clear Guarneri before they even get back to the start-finish line. You know, we talked about the fresher tires having to be careful around the old tires. But at the same time, the drivers on those worn tires have to make sure that they don't make a mistake like that, while not only trying to let those fresher tires by, battling for position with other machines. A couple of other drivers have just hit pit road, Jeff Green and Jackson McLaren.
Yeah, and Cooper Johnson in a max save mode as this 19 machine has just decided, I got to back out and just continue to lose momentum here as he has lost a lot of time. He was right on the back bumper of Terrian. He is now over 2.5 seconds back from the 38 machine, and I don't see him staying out there for very much longer, nor Thor.
Bourne trying to get to Joseph Causey. That would be a battle for the 6th position, right on the back bumper of that Budweiser Chevrolet down the back straightaway. And it's not looking at any point here that Anthony Guarneri is in fuel save mode. He did lose the lead to Shane Terrian, but he's still trying to keep himself within striking distance, about 0.3 of a second between those two, as now Cooper Johnson going to have to bring that 19 car to pit road.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Johnson put in his best effort, recognizing he cannot make it to the end. Might as well come in, take a splash, get back out there.
Not a lot of battling going on up here at the front of the field, as just about everybody's kind of tucked themselves into their slots. Some of them trying to save fuel, some of them trying to race their way up here, knowing they're good to make it. Big question marks right now up inside of our top 5 are Anthony Guarneri, Jake Hounshell, and Caden Thur on whether they can make it the rest of the way or not. Right now, our calculations would have them anywhere from 2 to 3 laps short unless they were able to save that under pacing.
And looking at drivers that have already pitted and moving their way forward, that's going to be John Whitendorf. He's unlapped himself. First car on the lead lap. Going to be in 11th place, and right now 28.6 seconds back from our leader, running about almost a little bit less than a second faster than what Shane Terrian is. So I think right now John Whitendorf just hoping for more drivers to pit as he'll gain more of those positions.
And I think right now, if none of the other drivers ahead of him pit, I think he's got the pace currently with drivers ahead of him that he could race his way at least back up inside of the top 10. So we're going to have to wait and see about that. One driver in particular, I know he'd like to get up there and pass, is about 9 seconds ahead of him. That's Gerald Campbell, currently in the 9th position.
Jake Hounshell's caught up to Granary, but he's got to watch out. He's got the 5 machine with those fresher tires trying to find his way past, but just not able to, as Marzio has just been kind of in watch and wait and just follow who's ever been making the moves. See if Houndshell can make a pass, but both these drivers, they're going to be extremely close on fuel coming to the end.
Houndshell is going to get to the left rear quarter panel of Guarneri going down the back straightaway and into 3. We look back for a brief moment at Cooper Johnson and Jeff Green. That's the battle right now for the free pass should a caution come out here in these final 10 laps as Houndshell takes the spot contact. Woo! Marzio
man.
Guarneri out of room.
That must be so frustrating for Granary. He's a driver that was just leading laps. He's in 3rd place in a lap car coming in, making contact. Right now, AJ is 4 laps down and making contact with drivers on the lead lap. So frustrating for a lead lap driver.
Carlson, you talked about the shot he took in the outside wall. He now brings the Hot Hughes Chevrolet to pit road. We're still waiting to see about other drivers, whether they're going to be able to stay out. Again, those drivers that were kind of questioning, Gerald Campbell, Jake Houndshell, Anthony Guarneri, and Caden Thur. Houndshell right now running 0.6 of a second behind Shane Thierry, and there is a difference of 14 laps between those two drivers in terms of when they came to pit road to get fuel in the tank.
It's still the looming potential of a caution. We got to remember, there's a lot of cars with fresh tires and a lot of cars still on older tires, and the potential of a contact being made between those different machines still very high here during this transitional phase that everyone's going through.
Houndshell lets the lap machine on fresher tires of AJ DeMarzo on by. See if DeMarzo can get up here to Shane Thierry, and if he can maybe rattle the cage of the 38 and allow Jake Houndshell to battle Shane Thierry and potentially for the race lead, as it's 6.5 laps to go, 6 this time by at the start-finish line. It's getting to one of those situations here, Sam, where we know who's good on fuel, we know who's kind of a question mark, but it's one of the situations you can't really put the cart before the horse because you don't know what's going to happen here in the closing stages. Guarneri finally to pit road.
Yeah, and I think that's a showing sign with how hard we were seeing Granary pushing. He had to come in. Houndshell and Thor. I think Thor, of the two drivers in 2nd and 3rd place, I think he's got the best shot to make it to the end, just because he's saving a lot more than what we've been seeing Jake be doing, but still going to be close. As Thor's backing down by a lot of pace, I think he's heading to pit road now.
He is bringing that M&M's machine to pit lane. The pole sitter going to come to pit road with 5 laps to go. And we got an interesting battle here. Actually, the battle's over. John Whitendorf had reeled in Gerald Campbell, bypasses him for 9th. Now, I know that's only one position, but it's the continuation of chipping away at the points lead that Gerald Campbell had been able to build in the first 4, 5, 6 races of the season.
I think Campbell was expecting a lot more drivers to stay out and possibly run out of fuel. Also in the pits, Jake Houndshell following suit with seeing Thor coming in. So now our top 3, Shane Terrian, Joseph Causey, Tom Bourne, and these drivers are good to make it to the end.
That has completely changed the landscape of the top 5. We had about 2 or 3 drivers within half a second of Shane Thierry, and they've all come to pit road as someone was smoking down there on the apron of the back straightaway. I couldn't tell who that was. Might have been the 4 of James Roth. But now, there is nearly 6 seconds between Shane Thierry and Joseph Causey, and there's only 3 laps to go.
And Robert Kenny is here for 3rd place. He's going to be trying to make a pass on the outside of Tom Bourne, and I think he might be able to get it here. Coming out of 4, Robert Kenny, a driver that's just kind of been lingering and waiting. He's been saving his tires for this moment, making the pass on the 54 machine.
Well, of teammates battling there, and then add in Tyler Riggs, who had to get the aid of a lucky dog to get back onto the lead lap. Start at the rear of the field, and he's now looking for 4th on Tom Bourne.
They were 3 wide for a hot second there. They've also got to watch out here for Jason Houndshell, who's on fresher tires than these cars. They'll be trying to make a move here on the 00, as well as the 02 of Jake Houndshell. Going to be following behind it, following his brother, trying to make the pass, as we are coming in, inching closer and closer to the end of this race.
Shane Thierry made his debut back at Phoenix, finished in 2nd, almost pulled off the victory there last week He was able to make a pass in the closing stages on John Whitendorf. He took the checkered flag there in his second start, and now in only his third start here in the Grand National Series, he's looking to pick up win number 2 and go back-to-back. The white flag is in the air.
Shane Tarian, I mean, what a run for himself. Continues to try to pull away. He's got to be careful. There's going to be cars behind him with much fresher tires. They might have to, I don't know if they're going to back off or they're going to be running hard here. I mean, this is for position of Granary as well as Jeff Green, as Tarian has to go high. He's got to be careful not to brush the wall, as he just gives plenty of room and coming out of 4.
More than 6 seconds to work with, so he moved out of the way of that battle, and Shane Tarian is going to win here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway, capturing the Smartway Remodeling 200.
I don't know if Gerald Campbell is going to make it to the end. He's in coast mode. I think the 25 might have ran out of fuel.
We're going to have to wait and see if he's going to lose positions as a result. That's Caden Thur going around there. That would have been for position. I don't know if Caden Thur has already taken his checkered flag or not. If he didn't, that would have been a pass for the 11th spot.
Causey's giving Tarian a bump there while Tarian's trying to push Campbell across the line, it looks like. Our winner trying
to help out. Tyler Riggs trying to help out. Tom Bourne trying to help out.
These are all guys that are in the same Discord chat, so they've been communicating all night long. And so just making a train for themselves coming across the line, pushing the limping 25 machine that ran out of fuel, but still across the line for a little bit of help from his teammates and just some friends.
So the points leader will make it to the start-finish line and officially cross in the 11th position as Shane Tarian now goes to work in burning it down at the Lone Star State Texas Motor Speedway. Let's take a look at the finishing results from this one, and typical mile-and-a-half track here, Sam. It came down to who had the fuel, and those 3 cautions around the midway point really were the deciding factor in all of it.
Yeah, it was around that time that drivers were trying to push it out to possibly make it a one-stop, and some drivers, they tried their best, trying to stay out there as long as they could, and for some, it worked out. For most, it did not, as it really was just a little bit too far for most of these drivers to make it on fuel, and a great move by Tarian as well as Kenny and Kazi and the others that pitted on that last caution, saying, hey, we got to get the fuel, we got to make sure we're good to make it to the end.
Some really impressive runs here. Joseph Causey, we've seen him had a lot of struggles last couple of weeks. He's going to finish second place. Tyler Riggs didn't even get to set a qualifying time. Started shotgun on the field. He's going to finish in 4th. Cooper Johnson in his debut is going to get 6th. Peyton Hill, back-to-back top 10 runs for that 84 car. And Anthony Guarneri, I know that wasn't quite the finish he was looking for, but man, he had himself in a shot to win this thing in the top 5 in the closing stages. Just couldn't make it on fuel, but still solid top 10 outing for him. As we mentioned, trying to kind of stop the bleeding that's been happening the last couple of weeks, and this was a great way to do it.
Yeah, great showing of that. Guarneri's got the pace. I think it's more of strategy that's going to have to be the call here if he wants a chance to be finishing up in our top 5 and possibly a potential to win the race. Is that the 16 machine showed some pace and really was looking good.
Gerald Campbell, the points leader, is going to finish in 11th. Whitendorf finished in 7th place, so Whitendorf will chip away a little bit more into Campbell's points lead heading into USA International next week. Caden Thur, the pole sitter, finishes 12th. James Goshen, great run for him there in 13th place. Jackson McLaren got a lucky dog in the late stages of the race, was able to finish 14th. And Hank Steinmiller, talk about a driver that would probably get the heartbreak of the race. He was leading, came down pit road, and got busted with a speeding penalty, will finish in the 15th position.
Yeah, and Steinmiller was needing a good day if he wanted to keep himself. He was 3rd in points, like you stated, and it was looking like he was going to be able to pass Campbell and probably even be further ahead than what Weindorf was, possibly even close to maybe a top 10 finish. I mean, a top 5 finish possibly for Steinmiller, but that speeding penalty came in harshly here at the end.
Number of drivers that were running pretty well in the point standings. Texas played its part into causing them a bit of heartache. Bo Brady and Blaine Atkin were 7th and 8th in points coming to this race. They finished out of the race in 25th and 26th, so no doubt about it. Texas Motor Speedway playing point shaker here as we head down the home stretch of the G-Force Grand National Series. Let's see if we can get some post-race interviews here, and let's kick things off with a driver who picks up his, I believe, first top 5 finish of the season, and that is going to be Robert Kenny. Hey, Robert, it's Sam and Seth up here on the Flatout Racing Network Studios. You got us?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Man, great run for you here today. We know that these type of racetracks with the long green flag run, it really is one of those type of tracks you kind of have to strategize from the end of the race all the way back to the beginning. Had those cautions intermingled there as well. So what'd you think about your chances there as we were going green to the end of maybe seeing if you could be up there in the conversation for this win?
Well, when the race first started, I didn't really think I would be in contention because I was trying to save enough fuel to make it on one stop, but it was way too far out there. I was going to be like 4 or 5 laps short, even with saving. So, and I didn't really figure out how to run the track until the 100 lap mark because I was just losing tenths a lap every lap, no matter what I tried. It was just I got lucky with that last caution being about 60 with 60 laps to go, or 58, or however many it was, and topped off on it and had enough fuel to run to the end while everybody stayed out just trying to save fuel by shutting off their engines and coasting. But yeah, it was a fun race with Riggs. Just watching him inch closer and closer to me in those final 10, 15, 20 laps, just hoping to stay in front of him.
Yeah, Robert. I mean, we saw the fact that you had speed at the end, that you started figuring out this course. And was there a point where you just said, "Hey, screw it, I'm not going to try to save anymore" at the end, or were you once you figured the race out, it was just push?
Oh, it was right when that last caution came out. I knew, well, with my saving in the first half of the race, I knew I could make it at least 60 or 62 laps, even without really saving. So I knew I was good to go from the end. It was just trying to figure out the track for the first half of that last run, then finally figuring it out, then just keeping my pace the entire time. And eventually, everybody pit for fuel and tires, and unfortunately, Tom bounced off the wall a couple times, so he came rocketing back to us, and me and Riggs were able to get around him.
Robert, a great run for you here tonight. Tremendous momentum for you as well. This is now, I believe, your second straight top 5 finish of the season, looking back at the statistics here. So congratulations on that. We hope to see this carry over into the next race at USA Speedway. But for now, we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
All right. Just want to thank sponsors in the car, Sim Speed Shop, G Fuel, Luminary Teammates, Shane and Tom. You guys for putting on broadcasts every week, and the league admins for putting on the league every week.
It's Robert Kenny, third place here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Once again, congratulations on a great run there, Robert.
Thank you.
Let's go and see if we can get our second place finisher, Joseph Causey. Joseph, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Studios. You got us?
Yes, I do.
Man, one top 10 coming into tonight's event, and you finally get yourself your first top 5 runner-up finish here tonight. If you had a little bit more in terms of laps, do you think you had enough time to be able to run that 38 car down for this victory?
I don't think I did. I was not good here. That was just salvaged from me pitting that last time and getting the fuel extra to go the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph, we saw there for the first part of that final green flag run that you were battling with Tom Bourne, and then you started to pull away from him, and then we started to see that there were some other cars starting to try to catch up to you. Was there any little fear once you saw the drivers in front of you, they all had to come in the pit road, that anyone else was going to catch up to your car?
I was just worried about Tom whenever he was behind me. I seen him. He ended up hitting turn 4 wall, and and then after that, he didn't get back to me. I knew as far as the gap I was good enough to keep enough gap to secure second. So I was like, yeah, I'll just run my race and I'll finish second.
Well, Joseph, a lot of times when we see these type of mile-and-a-half races go into that long green flag run at the end, we see those drivers that are willing to run the risk to stay out, and a lot of times ends up gaining them really good finishes. So congratulations on second place run here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway. We're now going to hand the microphone over to you to let you do some shout-outs.
Like they my team PRM gonna be PRC. I don't know what they're changing. A person that rigs Campbell Motorsports, maybe PRCM. I don't know. Let's see. Thank them. Thank all our sponsors. Belly Up, and they sponsor a lot of our vehicles as well. US Homics I know of, and I'm not sure on the others. But thank you for the broadcast. I'll probably have to go back and watch this one. It's pretty good.
Well, certainly a lot of fun to watch. That's Joseph Causey. Brings home second place here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway. Once again, congratulations on a great run there, Joseph, and good luck next week when you guys head to USA.
I appreciate it.
And down to victory lane we go. First time this season we have a back-to-back winner, and it's Shane Tyrion. Shane, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Series. You got us?
I got you.
Man, we've talked to you quite a bit here the last few weeks. You had that runner-up finish at Auto Club. You end up, make that rather at Phoenix rather. Auto Club last week. You find victory lane here tonight. You're back in victory lane again, but it kind of seemed like it was a little bit of a bumpy road to get to that point. We saw you get a little bit of damage there under the pace laps of that second caution. We saw you have to kind of play a little bit of cat and mouse with the 63. But at what point, knowing that you were good on fuel, was it all right? We're just going for this now.
Basically when I pit, I was surprised no one pit. I was like, okay, this is weird. This is, maybe they were expecting cautions, which I understand, but we went green the whole first run, so I was surprised. So when I pit, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna save my tires, and I don't really have to push it. And then for some reason, this I think it was the 16, the 22, and the 02, I think it was. They were staying out as long as they could. So I'm like, all right, well, I want to get by them because if a caution does come out, I want to be the first one off pit road. So that's when I started to push it. It was when they were staying out for a while. But yeah, this was interesting race. I liked it.
Yeah, Shannon, we saw there with that first long green flag run, and then we saw those spurts of cautions in the middle of the field, middle of this race. Were you concerned that it was going to just turn into a caution fest to the end of the race?
No, not at all. The track's wide enough. I knew there's gonna be wrecks. People were probably gonna calm down, but it's easy to make passes here. The car was tight, so if someone dove it underneath you, if you're on the outside, you're gonna drift up and give plenty of room to the car on the inside. So I didn't think there were gonna be many cautions. So if anything, I thought maybe one or two, but no, I definitely did not think it was gonna be a caution fest.
Shane, first driver here in the Grand National Series to go back-to-back. And in your first three starts, not a finish outside of the top two. So congratulations on that. What's the mindset heading to USA International? Because we know you're good at the speedways, but how about going to a track like that?
Definitely gonna practice. I actually didn't even practice this. I got to work at 8:30, go home, did one lap of qualifying, and that was my only practice. So I'm definitely gonna have to practice for USA. I haven't ran there. God, since rookie class, I don't know. It's been a long time. I like the track, but I'm gonna definitely have to do some practice, see what I can do. But that's gonna be a rough one. I don't know if we're gonna do manual cautions that race or have I race and do cautions, but that one's gonna be rough. But we'll see. I mean, I got a second at a short track, a win at over a 2-mile track, and then a 1.5 miles. So maybe I can get one at what is it, like 0.4 miles? So we'll see.
I certainly look forward to seeing if you can maybe make it 3 in a row here, but now we're going to let you have the opportunity to do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, thank you guys for broadcasting. And the league owners for letting me in. The Luminary guys with Tom and Kenny. And Kenny got the podium. Tom got 4th. Then the PRM guys were in their channel all race long, so that was fun. It was good to get to know those guys. So, and then I want to thank Evil Controllers, G Fuel, and the rest of our sponsors for our team.
Well, that's Shane Terry, and he brings it home with the victory, second straight win, and his second one takes place here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway. Congratulations, Shane.
Thank you.
And that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight from Texas Motor Speedway. Update, we mentioned the fact that John Whitendorf finished in 7th, Gerald Campbell finished in 11th. The points gap has been whittled down a little bit more. 12 points were gained by Whitendorf. It's now 27 points between Campbell and Whitendorf heading into USA Speedway. next year. So that's going to be an interesting battle to continue to follow, as they'll be at USA, Iowa, Dover, and North Wilkesboro to finish out the season. Almost seems like the tracks are getting smaller as we get towards the end of the season, and maybe that points gap will be too. But a great race here tonight. Shane Tyrion goes back-to-back here in the G-Force Grand National Series and takes the checkered flag in the Smartway Remodeling 200. Next week, as mentioned, it will be the USA 150 powered by Fade Grips at USA International. Hope everybody will be tuning in for that one. Should be a good one. That actually, I believe, is going to be running in 2 weeks' time, correction, on the 5th of January. G-Force taking an off week next week. But for Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's race here, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.